In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to grade log images in Adobe Premiere Pro. The reason that we capture content using log recording is because the images utilize the full tonal range of the camera sensor. The result? Better looking images with more information and detail throughout the entire tonal range. Our first clip, shot on the red camera, is currently being encoded as red log film. Now, what I want to give you as a takeaway in this tutorial is that there are 3 different ways to grade log footage for good, better, and best results. I'll demonstrate all 3. The first option is to use speed LUTs to convert log images into another color space like Rec. 709. A better option is to utilize the raw camera controls like Red Raw to normalize the image. And the best way is to simply grade the log images manually from scratch. This method works best because it gives us the most control over the tonal range and allowing us to choose what we do and don't want to keep. Let's try the first method. To apply a speed LUT in Premiere Pro, select the clip in the timeline and select a LUT from the Input LUT drop-down menu. As you can see, the red log film to Rec. 709 LUT gives us a good starting point. From here, we can continue to refine the correction, but keep in mind that a LUT tends to bake those changes in. With the second method, or an even better approach, if you're working with RAW, we can use the Red Raw settings to normalize the image from log by changing the gamma setting to Red Gamma 4 as an example. But moving on to the best method that I want to share with you is how we can get the most out of log by manually grading from scratch. The first thing I always like to do is to make sure that the trace is centered in the waveform. I'm going to make a slight adjustment using the exposure control as we want our talent's skin tones to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 IRE. Then we'll increase the contrast by pulling the slider to the right. Already we're seeing a nice change to the dynamic range of this shot. Next, let's use the color wheels to make further adjustments, starting with a color balance in the highlights. And then the shadows. Let's up the levels of the highlights towards 100 IRE. We'll bring the shadows down until they're just above 0. And adjust the midtones down to just about there. Moving back to the basic correction tools, let's add some saturation to make the image pop. And finally, using the tone controls for the white and black levels, we'll make slight adjustments to fine-tune the detail in the shadows and highlights. Let's see the before and after. Nice! Now let me share with you one other way we can manually achieve great-looking results. For this next image, we can have even more control over the tonal range by using the Curves tool. I'll adjust the levels of our shadows by moving the point at the bottom of the curve towards the right until the trace reaches just above 0 IRE. Next, I'll add a point near the top and begin to bring up the highlights. And then add a point near the bottom to enhance the contrast in the shadow range. Essentially what we're doing is making our own custom S-curve. Next, let's move down to the color wheels where we'll bring down the shadows. Raise up the highlights. And bring up the midtones as well. Finally, we'll go back to the basic corrections tool and use the tone controls to finesse our shot. Let's add some more contrast and increase the dynamic range by bringing up the level of our whites. Pull back on the blacks. And finally add some more saturation. That's looking great. Let's see the before and after. I hope this tutorial has given you some ideas on how to grade your own log images. Using LUTs is a quick way to convert images from log, or by using the raw camera editor, but having control over the full tonal range and grading from scratch will give you the best outcome. So I suggest you choose whichever method works the best for you and with your time constraints.